So, where should we begin? Modern dating. First of all, the verb dating, to be a dater. I mean, these are all very new concepts. This period that is often quite protracted, in which people are meeting one person after another, secluded from the entire life, very isolated from their life in this space called virtuality. So I wanted to explore modern dating, and I brought a number of different daters, each of them with their delights and their complaints about the experience of dating, each of them in very different stages of life and in very different kinds of aspirations and disappointments about romantic love and especially about romantic consumerism. I'm Esther Perel. Join me for the next episode of Where Should We Begin? Dating is a phase in the life of relationships and in the life of people that is crucial. How do we date? Where do we date? What are the protocols, the rituals of dating in different cultures? Who gets to say what they want? Who gets to be chosen? Who gets to choose? How do we swipe? It's like a portal when you say the word dating, and some of you are currently dating, and some of you are just so fatigued that you want to go cold turkey. And others are wondering, maybe I should go back and start dating again. And some of you are in a relationship wondering, what would it be like? What's it like out there if I was to leave? So dating puts us directly in touch with a host of questions about our relationships, what we seek there, how we see ourselves, how we connect to each other. And I am here on a blind date with 3 people who are currently dating, each with a completely different story, each at a different stage of their life. Some looking for partnership and lifelong relationships, hopefully, and some looking to have good time. Some enjoy it, some dread it, and everything in between. And part of app dating, digital dating, allows us to meet an enormous amount of people that we would never have had a chance to meet. And at the same time, the excess choice, the enormous amount of possibilities, the paradox of choice, the inability to just see one person emerge from this whole lot of people brings fatigue, brings numbness, and brings a certain kind of desocializing, where we begin to treat each other in ways that are very unkind, make us feel not really respected, esteemed, treated as a human being. And sometimes we are on the receiving end of this, and sometimes we are on the doing end of this, as you can hear from some of the people in the conversation. So let's talk about dating. Hi.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, welcome everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. You haven't had a chance to meet, right?
No,
Not
not
yet.
Afraid
yet.
not. No.
So we're all on a blind date.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just introduce yourselves, where you're from, how old you are, if you've had long-term relationships, but just to have a sense of what have been your experiences with relationships as a whole rather than just our focus today on dating.
Should I go
Yeah,
first?
go ahead.
So, my name is Louis. I'm in my late 20s. I work in accounting. And when it comes to dating, I was originally born in Africa, in Cameroon. I moved to the US when I was in my early 20s. And that's when I first came out as gay, obviously, and started dating. I have been in one long relationship, about a year and a half. I have had several dates that last for about 3 to 6 months on average.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty much my experience so far.
I'm Allie. I live just outside of Boston. I'm 47 years old. I grew up in Saudi Arabia and I moved to the US when I was 15. And I met my now very much ex-husband when I was 23. We were together for a long time. We were married for about 10 years before that came to sort of a screeching halt. And I've been divorced for maybe 5 years now ish, and I've had one longer term relationship in that time.
Yes, Douglas.
Yes, hello. My name is actually not Douglas. It's a very difficult Korean name that most people can't say, and Douglas is my alias. I'm from Korea, obviously. I moved a bit more than a year ago to Los Angeles because I got a job out here. And since then, I have been looking for a long-term partner, a romantic relationship, because before then, I'd always known that I was going to move away at some point. So I didn't really pursue that actively. And since getting here, I've been really at it. Since then, I have met one person who I went out with for a few months before she broke it off. It's been interesting. I've learned a lot.
Do you meet people in person? How do you go about it? What's the this is a verb suddenly, you know, dating. And
Yes.
it, by the way, does the word exist in Korean?
No, that's a good point,
Does
Esther.
right. Does the word exist in French? Louis?
Uh, yes, I would say. Uh, Rendezvous, sortir.
Yeah, but that's not a verb.
That's not.
And does the verb exist in Arabic?
Not as a verb.
Right.
No.
Because there is something, of course, everybody now does it in the same way, but as a verb, it doesn't translate in many other languages. There is no such a thing as dating. You meet people, you go out, you see someone, you've met someone, you're interested in someone, but you're not on a mission. Dating is an active verb that seeks an outcome. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to say about how this has become an activity rather than un rendezvous, rather than an encounter. So, if I asked you one thing about your last date that stood out for you, or datings, doesn't have to be one, but what has kind of carried you or stayed with you in your recent dating?
Hmm. I've noticed that it's very difficult to stay in touch with someone, even if they're very nice and potentially very compatible with me. If there's no some kind of attraction in the earlier stages, and I've been finding it difficult to feel attracted to a lot of people on my dates. Yeah, so I'm noticing that about myself and seeing what I can do about it.
Louis?
Um, okay, so for my most recent date, so to me, it's dating. It's a bit of a pattern, if you ask me, and I also had experiment to ask most of my friends. So it always goes from the really, really high, like high emotions, high attractions, and then it just fades out or drops suddenly. So that's kind of how it usually goes most of the time. And something that stands out for me on most of the dates I go to, it's not necessarily connection, but it's the interaction that I have with the person. It's the way they present themselves. It's the way they make me want to present myself, and they make me want to interact with them. So I feel like every single time it's always different. So it's always different, but at the same time, it has like kind of like a vibration, kind of a way of going every single time, if it makes sense. Yeah.
So Douglas says, I struggle to get to feel any attraction on many of the dates I go to, and you say I actually have splurges of attraction, but it fizzles out very quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. And what's something that you would like to focus on today, or a question that you bring to our conversation?
One thing I was expecting to get out of today's conversation, it's actually get a better understanding of where other people are standing. That's first, like where other people are and in their dating phase. So hopefully they are those previous partner that I have had before, kind of understand what is the angle, how they're looking at things, and maybe that could help me kind of adjust and kind of direct or be more understandable or be more patient or being more relaxed when it comes to it, not just put everything all at first, all the attraction, kind of tone it down a little bit or spread it out for the long run. Yeah.
Thank you. And for today, what would be something that's important for you?
I think something that I'm finding is I'm very ambivalent about dating, and I think a little bit more like you, Douglas. Like I don't find myself getting super excited to go on dates, and I find the process kind of tedious. So I think my friends are kind of sick of me talking to them about this all the time. Most of them are partnered, so I think that I don't have a lot of other folks who are actively dating in my life right now. So anything that can get me like a little bit out of that ambivalence, I think, is what I'm looking for.
How do you meet, Douglas? You're primarily on the apps. Which one? Where do you meet your people? Where do you meet your dates?
I have met the majority of them, of course, on the dating apps, I would say.
Which one?
I'm on Hinge. That's the only one that I'm on. And otherwise, I am very active. I go out a lot. I try to be social.
How about you, Louis?
Me, when it comes to dating, I meet people organically out usually. I'm very extroverted. I tend to go out on parties, out and drinking, and also on the app a lot. So on the app, I've used all of them: Tinder, Bumble, Hinge, and a special one, Grinder, for the kids. And yes, so that's usually how I meet them. And I tend to be more of a meeting in person type of person. I don't really do a long conversation. And usually what catches my attention is the person pictures, what they do, how they present themselves, if they are very outgoing, if they're very adventurous, if they like to travel. Those are the things that kind of get my attention first. Yeah.
How long do you exchange before you meet them in person? How long do you write?
Usually I give myself about a week. I have a window of about a week. So if we haven't initiated anything about a week, I usually tend to just dismiss it completely and just move on to somebody else, I would say.
And where would you go on a first date? And do you consider the first date when you meet them?
Yes.
Okay.
When we meet in person, yes. So my usual first date would be, usually it's a walk. I like to walk. That's something that I do a lot. So I would usually invite them. Before I used to live in Dallas, there was a specific area where I used to live by a small lake where I would just take every single person I did. We would go on the same lake, take a walk, and then if
and
the
depending
interaction
on how fast you walked, you had a sense of if there was a
depending on how fast we walk and how quick we do the loop, and if the date was successful, we usually stop by. There was a little restaurant where we stop by to have either ice cream or to have a little drink or something. If it wasn't successful, we just meet back and then just get back in our different cars and then go to.
So if it's not successful, successful means I'm not sure I want to see that. I know I don't want to see that person again, right? Is that the idea? Okay.
Yes.
What do you say? What's your opening line and what's your closing line, if there is such a thing?
Usually in person, we wouldn't say much. It's usually after via text that I would say it was a really nice time, but I don't really feel a connection here. So I wish you the best of luck most of the time. And I hate to say this about myself, but sometimes it just organically just fizzle out. Like they don't reach out and I don't reach out.
And the opening one? How do you start?
The opening one when we first meet.
Or even before, the opening line.
I usually tend to go with a joke, something about what their profile says or something about where they are on a specific picture. And I would ask them like, oh, is that the Grand Canyon behind you? Or, oh, I didn't know you could swim, something when they're completely in the water, just something like that. And yeah, that's usually the most successful one. Like I usually go in with a joke or just a standard hi.
Ali?
So, what is the original question again?
There have been so many.
Okay.
So, but you can start anywhere. I understood you started dating again after 20 years. So that's first of all differently from Douglas and Louise, that you actually have another experience. And this is a new culture. This is a new practice. How do you go about it? What do you write on your profile? What catches your attention? What is it that you're looking for when you look? What do your eyes stop at? And then I'll continue. So about I don't overwhelm you with 10 questions at once.
Sure. Even though my experience is really different from Douglas and Louis, like I'm on the dating apps, guys. Like I'm on Bumble and I'm on Hinge. And that is the only way that I've met people to go on dates with this time around. The last time I was dating was in my, early 20s, and maybe there were Craigslist personal ads back then, but there were no dating apps, and so you really, I met people at work. I met people who were friends of friends, or maybe you'd go out and somebody would hit on you. It was that kind of thing. So this was a totally new experience. And now I can't even imagine just going out at night somewhere with friends and meeting somebody organically, in the wild. I'm like, do people even do that? So the things that, I think I'm pretty straightforward in my dating profile about what I'm looking for, but I waffle sometimes. I'll, for a few months, it'll say, I'm looking for a long-term relationship, or I'm looking for a life partner. And then when that doesn't sort of get me anywhere, then it's well, maybe I just want to have fun. And so I might sort of change the messaging on my profile.
Does it change whose profile you then pay attention to?
Yeah. Because I'm looking at things like what is somebody's intention on the dating apps, and so then I might change, who I'm looking at or who I might consider. When it comes to the things that catch my eye on other people's profiles, it's always the first thing I'm looking for is is there a smile somewhere? Is there a smile in one of the photos? Hopefully the first one. And there's this intangible there's something about the visual piece that is my first line. And it's not necessarily do I find this person extremely attractive? Do I get the this is a kind and open person kind of coming through the photo? And that's my first line of sorting, I guess.
How often have you been surprised when you meet them?
Surprised in what way?
That they're kinder than what the picture showed, or that they're less?
I feel like it's 90% of the time it's pretty spot on. And then I get surprised every once in a while. Yeah.
And what makes you want to go and meet them in real life, or in the wild, as you call it? It's like the bonobos.
I think if the communication is there, there's so many times when I keep waiting and waiting during the texting phase for the other person to just ask me a question or make a comment specific to my profile. And if it's not happening, it's just, I have zero interest in continuing. But if there's immediate sort of text, good banter, good back and forth, fun, then I'm excited to meet somebody in person.
So then you meet them the first time, and where do you meet? It's
usually we'll get a drink, at a bar on the earlier side, so that if either of us wants it just to stay as we met for a drink, we can do that. Or if it's going well, then we can sort of extend it and, get some food. It's usually what it is.
How do you know, and how do you communicate it?
How do I know if I want to stay?
And how do you know? It's how do you know if you want to stay? It's how do you know if they want to stay? It's because a lot of these things are sensed more than known, actually. They're physical, but not just physical in the attraction sense. They're physical as in they're embodied. They don't always get articulated in words. But you know when you're curious, you know when you're not in a rush, you know when you suddenly want another drink. You sense when there is a kind of a rapport. between people. So describe it from what you experience.
Mm-hmm. I actually think that there's like a difference between how well I can tell if I'm interested. I have a hard time knowing if somebody is interested in me that way. There's almost always there's good conversation. I find it really easy to make conversation with people, and I'm curious. I like to learn about them. And for me, the way that it turns in the direction of, oh, I'd like this to be more than just one drink is if they're curious about me. And like you said, there are things that are sensed if it feels like, in a sort of embodied way, I'm a little bit on autopilot. If I find myself like just naturally like leaning into them, getting a little bit closer, there's like, eye contact and, some natural kind of flirtation going on, then I can tell, okay, I'm into this. It's a little harder. And it's weird because my last few dates that I've gone on, I've sort of walked away thinking like, that was fun. That was cool. Great conversation. I don't think they were into me. And then they came back and expressed interest. And I was like, oh, that's surprising to me. So I don't know.
And then what did you do? You went back?
Yeah. I'll almost always go. Like if the first date is fine, and if the conversation was good, I'm interested in just talking with people and getting to know them. So I'll almost always go back for a second date.
You said before, my friends are getting tired. I can't imagine them being tired if you tell them titillating stories of your dates. So there must be, there are the titillating stories, the fun stories, and then there are the frustrating stories, I suppose. So how much do you experience, and this is to all of you too, your dating life as kind of separate from the rest of your life? It's that thing that you leave your life to go on a date. You hope that it becomes more than one date. If it lasts long enough, at some point you bring this person into your life. It becomes a kind of a big reveal. I'm seeing someone, you're bringing that person in. It's a very interesting type of dating that is actually quite different from the way things used to be and the way it's done in many of your cultures, where you meet people as part of your life with your friends. It's integrated. And I see all three of you shaking your head. So, and if the date doesn't work out well, you had a fun time with your friends anyway, rather than you come back from a date and you say like Louis, well, that one was not successful. This one was a dud. This one didn't pan out. This one was just a waste of my time. I mean, you begin to evaluate the dating, in very material ways. I didn't go to do this with my friends. I went on this date. It was a nothing. And so then the dating takes on a different value. Now it needs to compete with what I could have done alternatively. And then, okay, you're all reacting to me visually, so I'm going to be quiet and let you all say what you're thinking.
Oh.
Go ahead, Douglas.
That's a lot. So I understand that what you're talking about is how dating is not integrated into our lives as our norm, but rather it's something that we do separate from our lives. And it's not necessarily fun for that reason. It feels a bit like a chore. It could. And I completely agree with you on this point. But I also try my best to have fun on these dates, right? Even if it doesn't go well, to know that it was a good learning opportunity.
Where do you meet on the first date? Where do you go?
Usually, I'm in the Louis boat here. I like to go on a walk. I like to nothing too intense. Something where you can leave if you need to, and the other person doesn't feel trapped, I suppose. So, yeah, I try not to go for drinks because during the nighttime I'm very tired and drinks make me even more tired. And I feel like that seeps my energy quite a bit. So, I like to go on daytime dates, maybe grab a coffee, something like that, or an ice cream, go to the farmer's market. Those are my favorite ones.
Do you ever do an activity, something that you enjoy, like the farmer's market, other activities, things you enjoy doing? What do you do when you're not on a date? What are your activities, for example?
That's the thing. So on my Hinge profile, it says, for our second date, I like to do something active and fun because I know for the first date, I would still be figuring this person out and what they like to do. I don't want to bring them straight into the things that I like, just in case that they don't feel comfortable in that environment. For the second date, I'd like to invite them to, depending on what comes up in conversation, I really like to climb, so I might invite them to the climbing gym. Or sometimes if we meet during the evening, oh, let's go to trivia night or something. Or I've had a really good date where we went to watch a movie, an outdoor screening, and that was really nice. Yeah, just depending on how that first interaction goes.
You know, the difference between a bar and a walk, there's many differences, but one of them is that you're moving.
Yes.
And there's a different way to experience presence, connection, even a little bit of the anxiety of meeting a new person when you are in motion versus when you are seated. And when you move, you are side by side. When you are at the bar, you are face to face.
Yeah.
And side by side is a little bit like when people fish, you know, and they say all kinds of things to each other, but they're looking ahead of them. And I'm thinking of that because you use this interesting word. I want to make sure that nobody feels trapped as we are meeting. So this is such an interesting thing. I want to just make sure that there is an exit for everybody. And, you know, so, and I also notice all three of you are on the extrovert side of the continuum. So it's you enjoy conversations. Is that accurate? Did I make a fair assessment?
I say no. I'm going to pretend
sorry.
it if I need to.
Okay,
Same.
I retract.
Yeah.
I totally...
Yeah, I'm more introverted. I like being like one-on-one with people, but yeah.
No, because I see your faces. If I saw your faces on the app, I would think outgoing, smiling, warm. I mean, that's what you exude right here on this Zoom thing. So I don't think of extrovert as big amount of people, but more communicating, engaging with someone, showing your curiosity, keeping eye contact. What you were saying, Ali, are things that you enjoy and you know, and they don't create such tension. At least that's how it came across. But I'm happy to tell me about the pretending, Douglas.
I feel like I'm a bit of an introvert, and I'm not really that good at making friends quickly or acting in a way such that it would make someone else feel comfortable, essentially. So when I'm out in the world, I'm out in social settings, I look at people and I think about the way they interact with me, and the things that I appreciate about those interactions, I try to mimic as best as I can. Such as just being super enthusiastic about anything in my life. I know genuine curiosity is something that is super attractive, and it draws people to you. I personally I'm kind of a cynical person, so I find it difficult to be genuinely curious about anything or everything a person does or says. But I try to think about people in their shoes and be genuinely curious about them. That's one example.
So what elicits your curiosity? How do you turn small talk into a date?
How do I turn small talk into a date? Assuming that this isn't already a date and we haven't agreed that.
The date in this instance is the structure. I picked someone from the app that seemed interesting enough, and I'm going to go and meet them. That's the structure of the date. To see if I actually am really curious. if the plot can thicken from the one-liner to a paragraph to a chapter to more than a chapter.
I see. Well, I can't fake it in that case. I actually have to be genuinely curious about this person instead of pretending. And those instances are few and far between, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm only attracted to a certain kind of person. So, and when I am, it's much easier and things flow and it feels good. But it's difficult to find
What
that.
kind of person or what kind of interaction? Because we are not just attracted to a person or a look, we're also attracted to an interaction. We become more curious because of the curiosity of the other toward us, or because of the questions they ask, or because of the way they talk about themselves, or because of the way they listen. So there's a whole rapport, there's a whole interaction. In some way, the date is that. I mean, as this is not science, there's many ways to define this thing, but part of what you're saying is, I know how to be polite, I know how to be courteous, and this is back to what Ali was saying, I don't always know for sure if they're interested. I could imagine that when you leave, because of how kind and polite you are, people could think that you're more interested than you are.
Maybe, but I also think that generally people are as kind and polite as I am, and that's how I have felt going on these dates. Even if they didn't pan out, everyone was equally respectful and kind and polite.
Nice.
Yes.
Good. Do you ever stop? Do you ever say, I've had enough? I'm done with this for a while. I need to meet differently. This is tedious, to use Ali's words. I've had it. Or do you have the same energy still that you have had from way back? You're shaking your head, Ali.
The first one, yeah. I definitely I'll take breaks and I'll pause the profiles and take the apps off my phone because it just feels really discouraging after a while.
What is the thing that is discouraging? The not meeting a potential partner or the process itself?
I think it's both. I don't know how to separate the two because I haven't figured out how to meet a potential partner in a different way than using the dating apps. And so I keep thinking like dating apps 2.0 have to be coming sometime soon because I don't think I'm alone in my frustration.
No. And what would you change?
I don't know. I feel like I could make $1 million if I knew the answer to that question.
$1 billion question.
Probably, I mean, there's probably something about being in person with people and meeting, being in the same space, like physical space as other people.
You speed date?
I haven't tried it. I'm thinking about it, but I haven't tried it yet. It's hard to find speed dating events for people in my age range. It's for 20s and 30s, and I'm getting close to 50, so it's hard.
What would you change, Louis?
To set a little bit of background here, for example, to me, dating is not tedious. I actually do enjoy dating. And I enjoy the act of just going out and meeting people. I think that's also something that comes from my background and the way my family is. My family, they just enjoy meeting people in general. That's like one big thing about us. So after that, the way I see dating, it's to me, I'm going into dating not looking for a long time partner, but I'm going into dating looking for a good interaction, a good conversation, a good moment. So I guess that's kind of what is hurting me sometime in the long run because I just go with this big smile on my face, with this just excitement of being there, of getting to know somebody that I haven't met before, and
Does the word love ever come in for you?
No, actually, no. To me, dating is, it just feels like I'm meeting a bunch of friends. Somebody I can be friends with, somebody I can be partner with, somebody that can, you know, I have no idea. So that's kind of the idea that I set myself into when I go into these dates. And I just go and I'm just looking for that, and that's why I'm not really mad about it because, sometimes I go after one night, I had a really great night. We had some fun, we had some drinks, we walked, we talked, and sometimes it could last a day, it could be a week of talking to somebody and then it fizzles out, or it could be a month, or it could be 2 months, or it could be 3 months, but at the end, I'm always left kind of happy because I get to have that interaction with somebody. But at the same time, I'm just like, okay, I still haven't found the person I'm looking for. But and then it just repeat the cycle, and I'm like, okay, you know what? Next week will be nice because I'm gonna meet somebody just as exciting as that previous person was, and I'm just gonna repeat that cycle again and again and again and again. That's kind of how my dating life goes, and my friend asks me sometimes, like, aren't you tired of going on all these dates? Aren't you tired of meeting all these guys? And I'm like, not really. I mean, it's fun, it's nice, I'm having a good time. It's not necessarily the long-term relationship I'm looking for, but it's something kind of. I don't know if that makes much sense. So,
I mean, I'm in a moment of frustration now myself. I have a zillion questions for each of you. I'm thinking it's such an interesting thing. You're talking about dating, but we haven't used the word love once. We're talking about dating, we haven't said the word sex once. You did mention about the fizzling out and the people kind of nobody writes to each other, but we haven't talked about ghosting. What are doing the ghosting and are being ghosted. So it's interesting that it's the way that the conversation is framed. Part of what you say is, I don't really get to be so disappointed because I line up the next potential candidate for the week after. And so I keep myself up with the curiosity and the anticipation of the next guy
yeah.
on my screen. But if I stopped, the way Ali sometimes stops, I may also kind of get to the shadow side of this and begin to feel the tiredness, the disappointment, the transactional nature of it. And I think part of what has kept the word love out of it is the transactional nature. All of you are emphasizing curiosity because it's the one thing that is not transactional in what we've been describing. It is a different sequence here. But what am I not including here that should be part of our conversation? Is there anything I haven't thought about that you have had on the front of your minds?
Well,
Ali?
do you want to go first, Ali? I think I've talked enough.
Sure, I'll just briefly say that, like, there's something very different in my experience about dating at this stage of life than when I was dating younger, looking for a life partner, for somebody to, have kids with and have a life with. This is like, I don't have a rule book.
You have children?
I do. I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. So, I can't just, unfortunately, like, when I take time to go on a date, it really feels like my time is limited. My free time, my leisure time is limited. And really, like, the person I'm going to meet from the dating app is competing against time that I can spend by myself, which I enjoy, or with my friends, which I love. And so, for me, I feel like I have to be really discerning. I can't just keep like lining up date after date. I don't want to. Like, I have a full life and people that I want to spend my time with. So, meeting a stranger and spending time with them, there's got to be something like that feels worthwhile for me. But like I was saying, like, I don't have a rule book. I'm kind of making it up as I go along, and that's very freeing in a lot of ways because I don't have like my list that I had when I was like 22. But at the same time, I I have much less patience for dating than I did 25 years ago. And something that I keep coming back to is like I just keep wondering like if there's like something inherently incompatible between me and I date men. I'm heterosexual. Like me and men of my generation, I just don't know if it's working. The one long-term relationship I had was with somebody who was 11 years younger than me, and that worked. And I don't know. There's something really odd about dating men my generation where it feels like there's like a cultural mismatch between us. And I don't know.
You don't meet anybody in your life through the kids, through your friends, through other people who have transitioned out of their first relationships or family relationships. And
no, like anybody that I know who has gotten divorced or transitioned out of their long-term relationships those are women. And I'm not, they're my friends, so I'm not going to stay friends with their now exes who are the men. I work in an elementary school. It's mostly women around me. And then through my kids, like those are, mostly intact families that I interact with through my kids. So I don't know what to do.
You were going to say, Douglas?
Well, something that, well, you just talked about with Ali is interacting with people who are already in your life rather than strangers who you meet online, right? A lot of this conversation has been centered around meeting strangers who you meet online through the apps. But I'm thinking about meeting people in real life through the friends that we know or existing friends that we have who we might be interested in. I think that's something that's not talked about too much nowadays, just in general, because the dating apps are so prevalent, right? I have people in my life who I'd be very interested in figuring out more about and going out with. It's just difficult to gauge what they think as well in the moments that I spend with them. So, yeah, navigating that has been a little bit challenging for me. I'm pretty straightforward. I have asked out some people that I've been friends with. None of them panned out very well. But yeah.
What am I missing, Louis? What is it?
So one thing that I've experienced is that with dating apps in general, and just like, the world in general, like everything it's so close to reach, nowadays. It's so easy to, to meet somebody that's across the world and just like fly when I'm on vacation and go on a date with them. It's so easy to have like, this many people, available like right in your phone. When you swipe, if it doesn't work in Dallas, you in DC. If it doesn't work in DC, you in LA. If it doesn't work in LA, you're vacationing in Italy for the summer. Maybe it might work there or something. That's one thing that I'm not sure maybe people are equipped to deal with, because and I have faced this issue firsthand, because if it doesn't work here or if I'm not happy with the result I have here, I'm always happy to just switch. People are always moving all the time. People are always transitioning. So that's something that I think people might want to learn how to manage, or maybe, I don't know, diagnose like what's going on like underneath and why they feel the need to do that, I won't say.
I mean, we could definitely talk another hour together. It's such an important subject of the moment in so many people's lives, done in a way that we are just beginning to understand what it does to us. I think Louis' comment at the end about, what does it do to our sense of self-worth, our sense of self-esteem, of how we feel commodified, not here but there, I don't like it, I switch. To what extent do we treat people sometimes a little bit like we treat products? I drop, I pick up, I examine, I decide, no, not for me. And what does that do to us fundamentally? I mean, and as long as I stay busy, I don't have to think about it, basically. Then I keep, I keep the adrenaline going, and I get the dopamine hits. But when I stop, I may not feel as good about this. And I can't thank you enough, really. I'm really very thankful, very appreciative.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Esther.
Thank you so much for your advice.
It's nice to meet you, Louis and Douglas.
Yeah. Nice to meet
And
you,
you,
Sue.
Ali. Good luck.
Good luck to all of you. Yes.
Where Should We Begin with Esther Perel is produced by Magnificent Noise. We're part of the Vox Media Podcast Network, in partnership with New York Magazine and The Cut. Our production staff includes Eric Newsom, Destry Sibley, Sabrina Farhi, Kristen Muller, and Julian Att. Original music and additional production by Paul Schneider. And the executive producers of Where Should We Begin are Esther Perel and Jesse Baker. We'd also like to thank Courtney Hamilton, Mary Alice Miller, and Jack Saul.